For the first time ever, the mid-engine Cayman platform has received the full RS treatment with this, the 718 Cayman GT4 RS, the best of which the GT department can offer for this platform. And finally, it has the GT3 engine. I am so excited to try out this GT4 RS because Porsche GT products are just always the best in terms of driving experience, the dynamics, the engineering. And for this one, with the mid-engine layout, I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. Bit of a tunnel. What? Oh. In terms of the powertrain, we have the 4-liter naturally aspirated flat 6 that is essentially the same as the 992 GT3 engine, which also then means it comes from the GT3 Cup car. 9,000 RPM redline, and for those who have experienced it, they understand that is an absolutely unbelievably amazing experience. So naturally aspirated revs at 9,000 RPM, finally the full GT3 engine, also the independent throttle bodies like we have in the full-out 992 GT3. It also sports some other mechanical changes that make it more aggressive, that's kind of pulled from various parts of the Porsche GT department. We have the limited slip differential from the 991.2 GT3. It has a PDK transmission only. No manual is available on the GT4 RS. You get the PDK dual clutch, 7-speed, but it's got shorter gear ratios for it to be a bit more aggressive. It definitely looks the part too. From an exterior visual standpoint, this one here is paint to sample Mexico blue with the Visoc RS package, which means plenty of carbon fiber. As with the other RS models like the GT3 RS, GT2 RS, you got a very big wing out back. That's the most obvious way to tell this versus a regular Cayman GT4. It's a swan neck wing, which means it mounts on top. It is adjustable manually, not active aero, but you can change the angle with a little screwdriver or something. But the reason it's a swan neck wing is because the underside is the most important in terms of the surface area for your aero effectiveness of generating downforce, and this produces noticeably more downforce at usable speeds, all in the name of pursuit of track performance. Other touches, we have the full carbon fiber hood here with the NACA ducts. We have functional outlets here, the vents on the fenders. It's lighter weight than the regular GT4, more aggressive front splitter. Suspension is more firm and aggressive, slightly lower ride height. And the wheels, we have center lock wheels on all GT4 RSs. Behind those wheels, we have carbon ceramic brakes. You can also option magnesium wheels on the GT4 RS. They are extremely expensive, over $16,000, but they save on unsprung weight, and they're this dark blue finish. This one does not have them option, just the regular Visoc RS package. Overall, in terms of the proportions, you see it's mid-engine versus the 911. The proportions change. 911 kind of angles backwards, where this is more equally balanced. Still has practicality, a front trunk and a rear trunk. And the last big thing I want to really point out is the intakes on the side. Instead of windows back there, you have this carbon fiber intake that's functional. That's where the engine breathes. And from everything I've heard and I'm about to experience, that completely transforms it and makes it unlike the regular GT3, even a GT3 RS. It's a whole different kind of animal. So with that, let's hop inside and take this Porsche Cayman GT4 RS for a drive. Wow. Wow. Talk about mechanical symphony. Wow. So the 4-liter flat 6 in the GT4 RS makes 493 horsepower and 331 pound-feet of torque. So when I said it was essentially the 992 GT3 engine, that was effectively 100% true. Porsche says that the power difference, because the GT3 makes 502 horsepower, is due to the change in exhaust routing. I buy that a little bit. I have a theory that's also to maintain the hierarchy, because the 911 still has to be at the top. So is there a little trickery at play to make sure the 4RS doesn't step on the GT3? Maybe. But regardless, this makes 500 horsepower, 331 pound-feet of torque, that 7-speed PDK with shorter gearing, rear-wheel drive. They claim 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds, up to a top speed of 196 miles an hour. But as you know, GT models, and especially the RS versions, are not intended for just straight line speed or top speed performance. These are meant to be the best handling sports cars, track cars, deliver the best driver engagement feedback, the emotional experience out of anything else out there. And so far already, I feel the GT4 RS definitely has those ingredients. The sound is... How do I describe the sound this makes? You hear that mechanical intake like a gnashing noise right behind you, and it gives it more depth and variety. So the lower rev range, the engine is not as pronounced, the exhaust is not as pronounced, but when you get it up there, that flat six takes over. And one of the most special auditory and emotional experiences in any sort of sports car is the modern Porsche flat six between 8 to 9,000 RPM. The sound and personality just changes. It becomes more like hard-edged. And it's impossible to properly describe unless you experience it. Every single time I hop in a GT3, a GT3 RS, and now this car, and the first time you hit that 8,000 and 9,000 spot, like you get goosebumps, like your heart rate just accelerates. You get the shot of adrenaline. You're like, yes, I am in a proper GT sports car. I'm in PDK sport mode right now, which makes the already perfect dual clutch transmission shift even faster, more aggressive. It's just instantaneous. I'm playing with the paddle shifters right now. You could use a shifter here too if I wanted. There's first gear. Oh man. The most linear feel. Down low, there isn't much power. You have to really get into it. Really get it into pretty much about 4,000 to 5,000 RPM before it really feels like it's going somewhere. But the response is, as you would expect. It's exactly what I expected. All right. That's phenomenal. Let's talk about the interior. It is, as you would expect in a RS product, and it's a similar formula. Lightweight, a little more aggressive, suede, carbon fiber Alcantara. We have the carbon fiber bucket seats, which once you're in, they are very comfortable. They hold you in perfectly. They don't hurt. I've done distances in these, and it's fine. They're very nice. Not very adjustable, but once you're in them, they're great. We've got this really cool blue suede on this specific one, along with the leather sides there, the Wysock RS logo on the headrest, tons of exposed carbon fiber. And with the RS models, they do these measures like you don't have door handles anymore. You have this little cloth strap that you have to pull. Now, just like the badges up front and the stickers and things like that, Does having an actual door handle add that much weight? It'd probably be easier for me just to eat one less cheeseburger the night before for weight savings, right? But I think it's all to give the impression, the overall ethos and experience of owning a car like this, and the owner see, yeah, look, I don't have door handles, it's more hardcore, yeah. Not complaining. Visibility is absolutely fantastic. Despite a big wing and the loss of the side windows there, it's still easy to see out of. I have no complaints there. The wing is kind of right in the middle, which does block a little bit of it, but it doesn't have as much of the vertical rake angle that some of these really aggressive wings have that block visibility. Is it as easy to see out of as a 718 Spider? Absolutely not, but I don't think that's much of a problem at all. It's comfortable, spacious, and again, like I said, familiar if you've been in a modern GT3 RS, because the layout, the buttons, everything is immediately familiar. It has the smaller screen, unlike the newer GT3, we have 3 gauge pods right here with the tachometer right in the middle that revs to 9,000 RPM, red lines at 10, with a speedometer on the left and a little digital display here where I've got vehicle data pulled up from fuel to temperatures and things like that. Little sport chrono clock there in the middle, start on the left, you insert the key and turn it, which I still like. I like that it's not a push button. There's a bit of engagement there where you put the key in, turn it, you feel the car start up and everything. Steering wheel doesn't have any distractions on it. Doesn't have your windshield wipers and headlight, all the different controls. It just has paddle shifters. It's the perfect size. Oh, and the noises. I can't think of a car that I've driven recently where you're with the engine. You're in the engine compartment, essentially. Usually, with the mid-engine vehicles, there's like a glass divider, and then you see the engine back there, so you can see it. It is in close proximity, but it's not right there over your shoulder. And this one, from the carbon ducting of the air induction and the airbox there, and the engine just being there, that is a total different experience from the GT3s. Now, this is firm. I may be a little bit, what's the right word I'm looking for? Accustomed to very firm sports cars and track cars, because I read other reviews like, oh, it's way too much. It's been okay. Now, if I put this suspension dampers into the more firm mode, I probably will change. Okay, yeah, I felt that immediately. Literally, like the first bump, you're like, whoop. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna go back to normal. It's definitely very, very firm. But having driven things like the Huracan STO, recently I drove a BAC Mono, right? It's okay. Would I really want to daily drive this car? Not somewhere where the roads are like this. If I live somewhere where the roads are perfectly smooth, access to the tracks all the time, canyon roads, then I think this is livable, right? But in the day and age where we have things like magnetic ride or like McLaren's or their fancy hydraulic crosslink suspension that rides so smoothly, yes, this is firm, hardcore RS model. So there's like 3 sections of character to this engine. You have down low where it's just like the intake, like the lighter noises up top, and then the engine kicks in from about, let's see, 4 to 7 to 8. See, that's all that flat 6, the exhaust, and then from 8 to 9, it's just this unhinged, hard-edged, monstrous noise. Ooh, lots of different character to it. A little boomy sometimes. I hear a little resonance right now. Higher gear, kind of just cruising at speed, but wow, does this have character. So I want to talk a little bit about my initial notions coming into this car. I've always personally struggled with, we'll call it the little brother syndrome of the Boxster and Cayman, because Porsche themselves have resisted the ruining the hierarchy. You have to have the 911 at the top. That's the flagship, that's the iconic one. So you can't have the lower tier model step on the foot of the big brother. So I've always felt like it's held down. A Cayman GT4 is never going to beat a 911 GT3 from the factory, despite the fact that it may have a better layout, a dynamic balance that makes more sense, is a smaller, more manageable size. They're not going to let it go above it. So the GT4 RS is the big deal. They took the proper big boy full-out GT3 engine and put it into the lower tier chassis, this platform, which to an enthusiast, is an absolute dream, right? We've got the best of both worlds. We have the mid-engine balance, the bit more manageable size, slightly lower price point with the full-out performance. So the question is, GT4 RS or a GT3? Where this sits in the hierarchy is supposed to be in between the outgoing 991.2 GT3 and the current 992 GT3. Even though it's an RS product, it's not going to touch the actual GT3 RS because that's a straight up cup car, right? That's a bit unfair. That's a tier above, and the price also reflects that. How does it feel having spent a lot of time with the 991 generation and also recently drove a 992? It makes sense. It seems like it's in between the two of them. The lap times reflect that. It's right in between the two. The fact that it's mid-engine and it does feel smaller is on my mind too. Ooh, it's firm. Oh man. To really truly exploit the potential too, we would have to go on a track. We're just cruising around some back roads here, some curvy roads on the road, experiencing what this 4RS is like. I was gonna try to make up my mind while driving this if I would take the GT3 or the GT4 RS. And I think I'm just more confused now. Because I like the top tier 911 GT3. That's like the aspirational, like, what do you want to buy? Well, I want a GT3. One of my dream cars is a manual 991.2 GT3. I love paint to sample. Then I drove the 992 GT3 and was like, this is unfair. They made the front end like 15 to 20% more responsive. It was so nimble. I feel that this is not quite on that level. It was remarkable with the GT3 Touring that I drove. You give it the tiniest little inputs and it's perfectly matched. This is not quite on the same level. It's also a bit cheaper. Man, what would I do? I don't know. We'll talk about pricing as I keep thinking. Base price for the GT4 RS is $160,000, but there is no such thing as a base 4RS. There's no, just like there's no such thing as a base GT3 or a GT3 RS. You throw options on it, and we all know what Porsche options are like. It gets very, very expensive. So call it 160 grand. With this car, paint to sample, Vistock is like 13,000. If it had magnesium wheels, those are like almost $16,000. You're starting to climb. You can easily get this to $200,000. Carbon ceramic brakes, we have front lift, and obviously like PTS exclusive options. And then you add the market adjustment. $50,000 to $100,000 over seems to be what GT4 RSs were going for, especially if they're a nice paint to sample spec or something like this. It's not a cheap car. All of a sudden you're at $250,000, and $250,000 for a Cayman is a little alarming when you look at how much a base Cayman costs, and you go to this, you're like, whoa, wait a second. A GT3 starts at 180 grand, so it's a $20,000 delta. But once you option those up, they are similar. So in this weird situation, you want to spend $250,000, you can either get a GT3 or a GT4 RS, and it kind of comes down to where the allocations are and what experience you want. If you're driving it on the road, most of the time, I'd say go for the GT3. It's bigger, a little more practical and well-rounded in the way that it's not the hardcore RS product. If you're gonna track it all the time or frequently, or have access to phenomenal canyon roads, I'd say try to get yourself the 4RS. The other big deciding factor is, do you want a manual transmission? And this GT4 RS is not available with a manual transmission, and the 992 GT3 is. The Touring that I drove was a manual, and it was phenomenal. It was such an amazing driving experience. The PDK is great, and it's because they're pursuing the absolute possible max performance, track times, all of that. And of course, this PDK is going to be better than any human. That's the situation. Same thing about a Spider RS. So if you want that in this platform, you have the GT4. Maybe they'll make a GT4 RS manual. If they do, then my opinion decision becomes even more challenging. I think I might have to go for this. I think this may have won me over a bit. The sounds are just unmatched, crazy. And it does have presence. And I do love that 500 horsepower is a sweet spot with a car that weighs about 3,200 pounds. It's not unbelievably, terrifyingly quick in a straight line. If I just did that amount of throttle input for that amount of time in a McLaren 600 LT or a 720S, I would have been doing 140 miles an hour, which is deeply irresponsible. This car, you can run it out the red line. You can feel that emotion, the sound, go through a couple gears, and it's not unbelievably risky or scary or anything like that. It just gives you that big grin on your face. That feedback is great. I will also harp on a little bit more about the size. The 992 GT3 is getting big. It's very capable, but it's big. I went back to back between that and a 991. I was like, whoa, this feels substantially larger. This definitely feels much smaller, more compact, and that helps. And also I love that with the Porsche models, because it's sporty, they don't just like make the steering unreasonably heavy. Some manufacturers, they associate heavy steering with it intrinsically being more sporty, so just weight up the steering. This doesn't have that. You have that same feedback. It feels nimble, but it's not like you're super heavy with the steering, so that's really nice. Ergonomics are great as usual. Visibility is nice. It looks great. It sounds great. I love this paint to sample Mexico blue because I am very partial for a bright blue, as you can tell by my Z06. And then there's one more. Wow. Oh, you can hear like the noise. This is a naturally aspirated car. This doesn't have turbos. I get why everybody that drove this car said it's just like one of the best. One of the best. I would love to get this on track. I'm sure it would be absolutely perfect. Another Porsche GT product that just checks every single box possible. Man, huge thanks to Syed at Platinum Motor Cars for letting me take his GT4 RS for a drive. He's been properly enjoying this thing. He got it through break-in and immediately took it to the racetrack. Like, there's a carbon fiber race helmet in the front trunk right now. It's got 4,300 miles on it. He has been driving and enjoying it and using it as it should. And if he keeps the car around, I think that means it's special, because that guy has had all of them, all the special high-end performance cars. So Platinum Motor Cars, make sure you check them out. I've done a lot of videos with PMC. The GT4 RS, final thoughts. I think if I was looking for something more track-focused and willing to let go of this being my manual platform like a Porsche GT car, I would take this over a PDK 992 GT3. I would still take a manual transmission over this or a 718 GT4 for sure. Manual GT3. Yeah, that's my verdict. That's my verdict. The GT4 RS. Finally, the mid-engine platform gets the full-out 9,000 RPM flat six. What a great machine. What a great machine. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. Make sure you also go check out, I did a walk-around video showing all the details, interior and exterior, and also compared it to my friend Jason's new 718 Spider, because we had it next to each other. And with that, I'll leave you with this. That's the GT4 RS. Thanks for watching.